some answers.
Probably, yeah. You know, when you have a discrepancy of being worth $172,000 for the purposes of trying to get a loan, and then ending up through all this mess, selling it for $51,000 to pay off their debts, you know, there's got to be a question here. Everybody is questioning it. And
the minutes of the July 1995 meetings. Are there any comments?
Duluth had residential space on the property. What I'm sure that for the opportunity to speak tonight, I haven't been here in a long time. It seems almost like the drawing. The bottom line is that it is a very inaccurate drawing and pretty much phony, and unfortunately it's hit the entire population just before the vote. The bottom part cannot legally be done. It is the city codes that require much more open space than what is shown here.
When the boundaries are yet to be determined, that would have to be decided upon working with the plan.
And I can assure you they're accurate because after we saw them, we ran them by Darrell Lewis in the planning department to make sure that that depiction, which is just one depiction of what could be built on that site as far as residential, but we made sure the depiction met all the code requirements of residential development on that site.
Speakers. It's been moved and seconded to suspend the rules to hear from the speaker. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed? The first speaker, that's a unanimous decision. The first speaker is Charles Endry.
We don't feel that there is really any problem here.
But that's not what the U.S. government says. Jeff Heumann from the Federal Office of Rural Health Policy.
Those funds, in our judgment, have been spent inappropriately, and that is a part of the reason that we are terminating the grant.
These are the grant guidelines the government says the Bayfield Clinic violated. They say the clinic was supposed to be up and running as a primary care facility last September, seeing up to 1,800 patients. The clinic has yet to open. Also, the money allocated to the facility was supposed to be spent on medical care only, not computer equipment or renovations. Finally, the government says about $300,000 have been spent, and the Bayfield Clinic hasn't seen any patients.
Well, I can show you the medical records. We have patients. We've been doing mobile services.
But federal officials say those mobile services, like immunizations, were not part of the grant. They would have been done by the county regardless of the funding. Federal dollars are frozen as of March. The clinic has 1 month to respond to the government's allegations. Otherwise, the grant will be terminated indefinitely.
This is the only one we'll terminate this year. Most of these grants work really effectively and are providing good services in small towns all over the country. But there are times when we just feel that we have to protect the taxpayers' interest by cutting off the flow of money when it's not being properly used.
In Bayfield, Ann Carroll, Channel 6 News.
Yep, and a chunk of it was...
Rising temperatures and melting snow have some Northlanders worried about floods. Here in Duluth, officials say right now there's not much to worry about.
We've had a record snowfall this winter, but the colder nights that we've had in the last couple of weeks have kept this from becoming a rapid runoff. So warmer temperatures now are causing increased runoff, but there's certainly no danger of flooding.
Huddleston says the water runoffs will go into reservoirs in the area, which should help take care of flooding in the Duluth area. But towns along the Mississippi River and parts of Douglas County aren't so lucky. As you can see, the flooding has already started, and with warmer temperatures on the way, highway officials say that this could become a real problem.
It's just a matter of the volume of rain that comes down. We're definitely going to have water over in a few the lower places, but strictly because there's snow in the woods and it can't take the snow. I mean, it can't take the water away fast enough. But.
While Douglas County is feeling some minor effects of the runoff, Duluth officials say right now they can't predict the floods will stay away for the long term.
It's very difficult to predict, but we can tell you at the moment that the runoff is not anything abnormal or unusual.
In Duluth, Tamika Snowden, Channel 6 News.
Students at Duluth-Stowe Elementary are learning about recycling with a difference. They've reduced the amount of garbage produced by their lunches, 12 cans, to just 1.5 cans of garbage. They further reduce their garbage with the help of worms.
We have 2 bins, and they are fed usually once or twice a week, and that takes care of most of our fruits and vegetables at this time.
Waste products are put into special containers filled with worms, which eat the waste. Officials estimate the wriggly little things will save the school $3,000 in garbage bills. It's all a part of a total recycling effort at the school. Kids find it second nature.
The kids really enjoy it. They see it as a natural process. The whole process of recycling, we have them just do it instead of reading about it.
The kids all have their own jobs. Some are in charge of bringing in recyclables from different rooms, while others recycle worm food from the kitchen.
We take the cans that they use for the lunches and we take the bottoms off of them. And then we crush them. And we put them in some bins.
The students say they recycle for many reasons.
To protect the environment, to save the earth, and so all the plants and animals don't die and we can have more medicine and food for the earth.
The method may appear unconventional, but by recycling lunchtime leftovers, these kids say the environment wins big. In Duluth, Minnesota, Michelle Lee for NBC News.
It's their community. They're the ones that need to take care of it.
Central Hillside residents, officials, and community leaders met to discuss concerns and solutions to crime in the community. Residents say it's time to take back their neighborhood.
I know of a lot of drug problems, right? Drug houses right close to me, and I just think we have a lot of good people that live in our neighborhood, and we shouldn't have to put up with those few people that want to cause us a lot of problems.
Central Hillside officials say this is the first meeting they've conducted of this kind.
They will split up into work groups and go out and meet on a weekly basis is kind of what I foresee, to work on solving their list of problems. And they'll report back to the community club, and we'll get back in a bigger group at some point too.
Some of the issues up for discussion are vandalism, gangs, illegal drugs, and repeat crimes. Officials involved say they hope this meeting helps police and community relations.
And hopefully to get everybody to understand a little bit about what we do, but also to understand the needs of this community and how we can better serve them.
Residents say they hope this meeting is a new beginning for Central Hillside.
If we do this enough times, I think, and we can bring it into the attention of everybody that there is a real concern that maybe some things will get better.
Other residents say solutions to the problem start within the community.
Individuals, we can bring the community together, but it has to start somewhere. And I think this is a good idea, and I think we should have more follow-up programs like this.
In Duluth, Tamika Snowden, Channel 6 News.
Thanks for coming. I'd be happy to answer whatever questions you folks in the press have. That after 30 years of having big government, 30 years of having a large collection of programs that have cost over $5 trillion, we do need to return to the idea of individual responsibility and individual freedom. The basis of our party, the Republican Party, was Lincoln's statement that we should attend to the veterans of the Civil War and the widows and the orphans. That was among the very first things that Lincoln spoke about as an obligation of government. As you know, that was a particularly
They came with their sneakers, their skates, and their hope for children. This weekend, hundreds of Northlanders supported the March of Dimes during Walk America.
Now that I'm a father and a husband, and I have a healthy child, it's something that I can give back, and this community can give back to everyone else that's out there that has a chance of having a child.
It's every parent's hope, a healthy baby. But not all children are given that start. Melissa Rosine's twins, Zachary and Milena, were born 6 weeks premature.
I was told by Dr. Krieger, the neonatologist there at St. Mary's, that had he not covered them with antibiotics immediately after birth, that they would have died.
To the Rosines, the twins are a medical miracle, one that was only made possible through March of Dimes research.
It's a very worthwhile organization that is moving ahead to make a difference.
And communities everywhere are moving right along with them, hoping that their effort will mean many more stories like the Rosines.
The children are our future, and if we can prevent a birth defect for a child, that has a tremendous impact on the outcome of their life.
In Duluth, Molly McMillan, Channel 6 News.
Sweet Home can be a breeding ground for bacteria. This kitchen looks clean enough, but there are places harboring dirt and germs you can't even see.
3 kids, sometimes it's hard to keep it as clean as I'd like to.
Talk about brave. Medical technician Elaine Evans agreed to test her kitchen. Aside from daily wipes and swipes, she cleans it thoroughly once a week.
I did see some gunk between the slots on the dish drain.
And the kitchen sink can be a spa for bacteria. We swabbed it to find out just how bad it is. We also tested the cutting board. Time for the results.
From this surface, we cultured a staph species and a micrococcus species. Both of them are gram-positive cocci.
Believe it or not, that's fancy lab talk for normal environmental organisms. And from the sink, same thing, despite the gunk. When it comes to wiping up the kind of germs and bacteria we found, if you're using one of these, you could be doing more harm than good. One study looked at sponges from 500 households. It found that 20% of those sponges contain salmonella, a bacteria that when ingested could mean hours of vomiting and diarrhea. That's good. Home economists here at Rodale Press have to keep their test kitchens as clean as possible. Here they test all kinds of products and recipes for cookbooks they publish. One step in their germ warfare strategy, ditch the dish towel.
I've seen a lot of people put their towel on their shoulder and then they dry the dishes and they let the dandruff, whatever, come on their dishes, so that's not a good thing. Sometimes they wipe their counters, wipe the sink, and they use the same towel to dry the dishes.
Other tips include let dishes air dry and clean your cutting board with bleach and hot water. And maybe you can win the war against germs at home. For NBC News, I'm Diana Penna.
If you're not here in 10 minutes for the Northland's #1 rated 6 p.m. newscast, here's what you'll miss.
The first members of the baby boom generation are turning 50 years old this year. Tonight, in a special report, we'll look at the Peter Pan generation all grown up.
We'll see you at 6 on 6.
They've been working very hard on a plan that would include the museum and the Hockey Hall of Fame, so it wouldn't be separated. And that's basically what we talked about today, and that plan is about 2 weeks away, and we're pretty excited about it.
even talked about building a fish hatchery. It's basically my idea. It was not something that was, suggested by the Department of Natural Resources. It was during the Indian spearing season I found out that we had not really built a fish hatchery in this state, a brand new fish hatchery since 1939. We remodeled the Spooner one in the 60s, and we need more fish.
This is a classroom she helped me find.
And so when you have somebody like that and you lose them unexpectedly, it's really a shock to the system. And so you have to help kids work through the shock and then begin their own grieving and grief process, which obviously is going to take a certain amount of time. Insofar as possible, we try to keep the regular school going as much as we can, but obviously we have to reach out and deal with
Each year, thousands of tourists come to the Northland to see all the natural beauty it has to offer. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret. One of the best sights we have isn't down here. It's up there. The night sky is a vast treasure house of wonder, waiting to be discovered by those who take the time.
Take a look up. You're bringing the garbage out at night, look up. You may be surprised. You might see a meteor one night. The next night you may see a spectacular display of the northern lights. It's all there. It's all part of the beauty of nature.
One of the most awesome sights in our skies is the aurora borealis, or the northern lights. At any time, it may form sheets of fire stretching from the northern horizon to directly overhead. We've all seen the moon 1,000 times, but have you ever looked closely? It offers blood-red eclipses and hundreds of identifiable craters. From there, it's easy to move on to our neighbors. This is the planet Mars, known as the Red Planet, for obvious reasons. Each one of these stars represents a sun much like our own, trillions of miles away in space. Ancient astronomers saw patterns, which came to be known as constellations. With a little imagination, it's possible to pick out their shapes. For example, Sagittarius, or the teapot. Don't see it? This may help. It does take a little practice. If you have a good pair of binoculars, other objects will emerge from deep space. Glowing clouds of gas called nebulas are a stunning target, or perhaps the moons of Jupiter. These sights can have a profound effect on an observer.
Kind of puts a perspective on things. Our place in the universe, we're just this little island in the middle of this great empty space, and there's kind of a philosophical aspect to it. I like the quiet and the solitude.
The objects we've shown you tonight don't require a great deal of expensive equipment to see for yourself. All it takes is a little patience, a little time, and a trusty pair of binoculars. George Kessler, Channel 6 News. The first step in becoming a sky watcher is to just walk outside and look up. If you live in town, that might not be as easy as you think. One of the big disadvantages of living in the city are these guys right here. Street lights are so bright, they block out the night sky. So to get a really good view, you need to jump into the car and head for the country. Once your eyes have adjusted to the darkness, take a peek at the vast collection of stars above you. That is the easiest place to start.
The constellations, all of them can be seen without any problem. We don't need a telescope at all. In fact, it's better without one. And they're made of some of the brighter stars in the sky, so you can easily pick those out.
The spring and summer skies offer excellent viewing. Face west and look low in the sky to spot Leo, the lion. Looking north, there is Ursa Minor, known commonly as the Little Dipper. The star at the end of the handle is Polaris, the pole star which shows true north. Looking straight up, it's easy to spot the corona borealis, which is known as the northern crown. Planets are also visible to the naked eye. For the next few weeks, Venus will be extremely bright just after sunset in the western sky. Jupiter will also be making the rounds. Look low in the southeastern sky for a bright reddish star. If this is too much to remember, help is available. There are literally hundreds of books and magazines at the library and bookstores to help you sort out the heavens above. If you want a better look at the cosmos, pick up a pair of binoculars.
Take those binoculars that we all have in our homes that we use for viewing birds, deer, whatnot, and just point them at the sky. You can be your own Galileo. Galileo, our binoculars are better than his first telescope, and with his first telescope, he discovered the craters on the moon, the moons of Jupiter, and so forth. You can do that and recreate it for yourself with just that old pair of dusty binoculars.
The extra magnification they provide opens up a whole new set of possibilities. Craters on the moon, other planets, and spectacular nebulas. It's all there waiting.
So you're looking at a vast wilderness that people have barely scraped with our trips to the moon and our satellites to the various planets in the solar system. It's a wonderful, it's the rest of the universe, and you can see it from your front yard.
George Kessler, Channel 6 News.
There's great similarities between the years. I've been up in the boundary waters for the opium fishing season. It's so hard I couldn't see.
The constellations, all of them can be seen without any problem. We don't need a telescope at all. In fact, it's better without one. And they're made of some of the brighter stars in the sky, so you can easily pick those out.
Thank you. Kay said when she found it, she realized it hadn't been used too often.
Maybe a tiny one, but no. I thought if I lost some money, I'd want someone to return it to me.
But when you pick up a handful of money, you don't even know how much, and immediately turn it in. She didn't even question herself. She immediately turned it in. I couldn't believe it.
On your way through town?
Yeah, we come to quite often to shop and that.
Okay.
We come, and when we in this area, like I told you before, we eat. We stopped that day to eat.
Yeah, and you were just on your way through town?
Yeah, we come to quite often to shop and that.
Okay.
We come, and when we in this area, like I told you.
Run so complete they scarce are more than one. Yet
People.
the dreams of labor in the town, he sings the sack, the quickened veins, the wedding song of sun and rains.
mean, there's such a plethora of problems with the buildings as they stand, you know, and a lot of it is just age-related, age and space, and we've outgrown them. We've got, you know, 80, a little better than 80 kindergarten children at the middle school right now because we don't have a place to put them in the elementary buildings.
Engineering consultant. We'd encourage people, if they do have information, to come forward and help us put together as much information as possible as quickly so that it would aid us in our investigation.
If dumping stopped back in the 70s with the barrels, back when MPCA said that they need more restrictions on these kinds of chemicals, why is investigation coming around now rather than back then when we
has been. People are concerned because there is so much less white pine. It's not an endangered species, but there's much less white pine left in Minnesota than was here historically. And that's one reason why we're looking at maintaining most of it.
You can't see the danger, but it's there. What you think is a leisurely walk in the park or a romp in the backyard could end up being your last, your child's last, all because of something so small, so deadly, a tick. All it takes is one bite, and that's where the trouble begins. We've all heard of the different kinds of deadly diseases ticks can carry. Lyme disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Now a new strain has been discovered, and it's on the rise right here in our backyard. Scary as that sounds, so does the name. Tick-borne diseases are hard to diagnose because most people don't remember being bit. When ticks attach to your skin, they can feed on your blood for days while releasing a toxin back into your system. And that's where the trouble comes in. The symptoms of ehrlichiosis are like Rocky Mountain spotted fever, except you don't get those red splotches on your skin. It all starts with a headache, muscle pain, chills, fever, sometimes nausea. If this lasts up to 2 weeks, get to a doctor because you can treat ehrlichiosis with antibiotics. If not, and you're bitten by a tick carrying the disease, it can lead to paralysis and you can die. Best way to protect yourself? Check for those awful-looking blood-sucking ticks after any outing in a grassy, wooded area, but do it right away before it's too late. Leah Sanders, NBC News.
Yeah, looks like.
It's like there's a big lake, so we need like a little bridge.
Tim Meyer with, that's something we wanted you to think about. They have racing tracks, and it's more of an old...
I guess like you can't put a power plant right in front of a hospital and stuff because that would just make them really sick.
Well, it's kind of fun because you can make any house you want. You can put like ponds and lakes. You can do whatever you want to your house.
I've learned like how our city could be like if we were to build it.
Why wouldn't it be good to have it on the road that it's on right now? Okay? Because
Early evening on the campus of Millsaps College. An audience has settled in for an evening of traditional classic entertainment. some not so traditional. The ballet as danced to country music by Patsy Cline.
The reaction always is ballet and Patsy Cline, ballet and cowboy boots, and my response is absolutely. This has been going on for 500 years or more, that the ballet started with the common people.
The result is a crowd-pleasing production. The audience gives it 2 do-si-dos up.
Oh, I thought it was wonderful. I'm so glad we came. We love the Patsy Cline music, and the ballet was just wonderful.
Ballet to country music is something you'll probably never see in the old country where the art form originated. But this is the melting pot, the good old USA, where mixing the unconventional and the untraditional is an art form all its own of sorts. And this just may be one more perfect mix and match.
Sonny is swinging high today, feeling a lot better since his blood lead level came down. Last week it was a near toxic level, all because he loves to touch and bite these vinyl mini blinds.
And I'm figuring, okay, it's plastic. It's safe for my kids to play with. You know, they weren't hurting them. They weren't getting hurt. You know, I thought, but they were.
But since the vinyl mini blinds came down, his blood lead level came down. He's not out of the woods, though, yet, and that's why his mom was anxiously awaiting the results today from the health department. Last week, they tested Sonny's house for lead. The sandbox, no lead there, and the yard, no lead there. And then the dust around these mini blinds.
Now, the reason they test for dust on these blinds is very simple. The sun comes in and it wears away the plastic in these blinds. That brings out the lead dust, and the dust is what the kids eat, and that's what makes them sick. Now, the dust that came off these blinds in Sonny's room tested out to be 835, 8 times what is considered dangerous.
The health department also clipped and weighed the blinds for lead content. Simply put, they tested more dangerous than plain old lead paint. And these results back up months of North Carolina studies that say that daycare operators and all parents should remove plastic imported mini blinds out of the reach of children. So Jeanette took down the blinds, hung up sheets, and got them away from Sonny. And today is hoping that since they are gone, Sonny's blood lead level will keep sliding back down to normal.
Mommy, Mommy, Mommy.
It sounded like you just took a big old freight and threw the throttle open, and the momentum just kept getting louder and louder. It just got this big roar, and all of a sudden, it just like it climaxed, and the power just made everything shake.
Blaine Benson was asleep at 2 in the morning when straight-line winds ripped the roof off his home and flattened his barn. His buildings were insured, but saving personal possessions buried in the wreckage was more than he and his wife could do alone. That's when an army of neighbors showed up, volunteering to do whatever needed to be done.
And we're just happy that nobody was hurt, and there's a lot of loss, but we got 3 things, and we got our health, our friends, and our neighbors, and that's about all you need. It's devastating, but we got the world.
Straight-line winds ripped a 3-mile swath through 6 counties in southern Minnesota early on the morning of May 19th. Damage estimates are already in the millions for a storm that actually only lasted a few minutes. Stan Strife lost his barn and dozens of 100-year-old trees. Again, neighbors came to help.
Well, they just show up and start cleaning. You don't just ask what you can do, and that's what neighbors are for. Some people just stop in and start sawing.
Damage is expected to reach $40 million, and counties have asked to be declared disaster areas. But while farmers wait for government help, they will depend on each other. In West Concord, Minnesota, Dave Jench, Channel 6 News.
getting trout from, and we're putting them into the streams and stuff, and then they're gonna have then they're gonna be able to have a nice place, and they're gonna have space and everything.
Spending money that you don't have, you couldn't run a business. After they get their tax bill, and he is a moderate, and I can speak from 29 oil bill bail. CNN radio.
What's going on?
I think it's going to be good for the listeners. It'll be a larger company with more resources to take each individual station and improve its format. That's assuming they want to keep the present formats. We don't know what they're going to do until after the sale is closed.
Okay, they haven't given you any kind of...
It's on the dock right there for you. Thank you so much. Good.
Well, I think it just showed that we had a couple of good candidates in the race, and we also had some delegates that were very committed to those candidates. And the fact that, you know, every convention is different, every year is a little bit different, and this was one of those unusual years when the convention didn't endorse. But that doesn't mean that we don't have good candidates.
Paul Wellstone wants liberal bureaucrats from Washington to mediate the problem. Paul Wellstone won't listen to us.
These ads have caused a political debate in northern Minnesota. The ads use Congressman Jim Oberstar's image to attack Senator Paul Wellstone on mediation for the Boundary Waters Canoe Area wilderness. Oberstar and other Democrats now want TV stations to pull the ads.
And he's asked both the Republican Senatorial Committee and local stations to pull the ads because they're just misrepresenting so many different facts and quotes.
A spokesman from the National Republican Senatorial Committee says the Democrats are blowing smoke. Patrick McCarthy says the ads are accurate and that his group may run more. KBJR will not remove the messages from the air. General Manager Bob Wilmer says the station won't get in the middle of the debate.
With respect to these ads and what's happening, KBJR is the messenger. We were not the creator of the ad. We just were the delivery system.
Wilmer says a dangerous precedent could be set if television stations become decision makers about the accuracy of political messages.
If we were to become involved in saying that we were going to pull one spot off or another, who is going to then come to us and say you're showing favoritism to one side versus the other?
Wilmer says if Democrats don't like the messages, they need to discuss the issues with Republicans, not broadcasters. In Duluth, Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News.
That sound? It's frogs and toads, and it has some South Florida residents hopping mad.
They keep me awake at night. I wake up a lot during the night, and I can't go back to sleep because I hear these frogs.
Sue Snowden says she first noticed the frog fracas after some heavy rains, but the wet weather is only part of the story. Do you know what they're doing?
I have no idea.
It's a mating call.
Oh my gosh, well, there are going to be a lot of frogs, man. There are going to be a lot of frogs.
Is that noisy?
Yeah.
She can laugh, but hundreds have called the Florida Game and Freshwater Fish Commission to complain. Some demand game officers shut them up, poison them, silence their love songs.
It's the call of the wild, it's the love call, and you have to either accept it or move. However, there is one other alternative that I personally recommend. This is a frog noise suppression device. Notice the color, green, very appropriate, very aerodynamic. And if you wish, I'll demonstrate its uses for you.
Go ahead.
Okay.
The weather prediction for the next couple of days is clear skies, and that's good news, because there's something else that likes this wet weather, and these won't do much good. The alligator. Kerry Sanders, NBC News, Boca Raton, Florida.
Itasca County authorities responded to a house explosion that killed 79-year-old Harriet Carlson and 4-month-old Michaela Garrison. 4 other people were in the house during the explosion. One of the survivors says it's an experience she'll never forget.
I remember everything. That's what's so hard. It's hard to describe. I know we went flying, and then everything fell around us. It was almost like being buried alive.
Chandra's grandparents, Howard and Harriet Carlson, owned what used to be a home for many years. Chandra says the only reason why she, the baby, and her husband were here was to use the garage so he could do some repair work on their car. Authorities say the explosion was caused by propane, but they still need to find out the source of the leak. Gas appliances in the house included a furnace, stove, dryer, and water heater, which was newly installed.
A brand new gas stove was installed the previous morning. The same day that the gas hot water heater was installed, which would have been the day of the explosion, existing gas dryer in the house was reconnected.
3 of the family members are in stable condition at a local hospital, and 1 was sent to St. Mary's Hospital in Duluth. Chandra says it will be hard coping with the death of her child and grandmother, but she knows they'll find the strength to go on.
We're going to go to counseling and try and heal. Do as much as we can.
In Cohasset, Tamika Snowden, Channel 6 News.
My grandpa is in the hospital here too.
Nobody would ever want to develop this property. And this is, to me, it's an ideal type of an arrangement. Get something on something that's useless. And it may turn into something that everybody's going to enjoy.
Coinstone for Kids has been an annual event for the last 6 or 7 years, and this looks like it's about the biggest one we've ever had. We've got about 100 kids that are bringing in all their pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters, and I think we have a record winner here of 4,000 pennies in one bag.
Ice deliveries are probably 3 or 4 times what they are in the off season, so business is going real well right now.
Amount of time, but in relationships, often
we really have to unite as a community to promote more positive legislation, as well as more education programs to say that abusers don't necessarily look like abusers, and to pick up on the signs and symptoms. There's not really a checklist, unfortunately, that any of us have to say this person will batter or this person will be a victim. Unfortunately,
right from the beginning, they've shared our sorrow with us. They've shown us their support, and now they're helping us to rebuild our lives without Brian. And I wouldn't be here without them.
I just felt we needed a little bit of a change and kind of update ourselves a little bit, and like I mentioned.
It's not good for UMD. It's not good for our reputation. The reality is that these things are going to happen over a period of time, and it's up to the chancellor and the administration to deal with it.
First of all, I grew up in northern Minnesota. The Boundary Waters begin 75 miles from my front door in Chisholm, Minnesota. I've canoed throughout the area. Myself and later with 2 of my daughters.
32 years ago, as a young congressional aide, Jim Oberstar heard firsthand the promises, as the Boundary Waters was included in the Wilderness Act of 1964, that motor restrictions would be limited to just a few areas.
Senator Humphrey included the Boundary Waters canoe area as part of the Wilderness Act, but with exceptions for other uses, including that of timber, and specifically use of motorboats.
So when the new wilderness movement tried to eliminate all motors in 1978, now Congressman Jim Oberstar fought for his friends and constituents.
People who chose to live in northern Minnesota, who love this area, who stay here when it's 60 below zero, who don't pack up and go someplace else, who feel very strongly about the region, who love this wilderness, who protect it, people who go into the Boundary Waters and clean up after the tourists.
I asked Oberstar if he ever tired of the endless bickering.
I feel this issue very deeply for the people who live here and love this area and who are its first line of defense.
This is the argument Oberstar took to Washington this week. People living near the boundary waters are being economically hurt beyond what the 1978 bill intended.
And they want some changes, some modest, reasonable, responsible changes.
The 1992 lawsuit, which closed motorized portages, went too far, according to Oberstar. But new entrepreneurs in the Boundary Waters region are turning wilderness restrictions into cash.
It's that resource that has allowed our community to spawn over 100 new businesses in the last few years. Now, mind you, this is a community of under 4,000 folks.
Oberstar is disappointed that his bill to bring back the motorized portages has a slim chance of passing.
We have a 50-50 chance in the House and probably a smaller chance in the Senate.
He is candid with his resort-owning friends. He's also direct with his pro-wilderness friends, charging their successful lawsuit banning the motorized portages violates the spirit of the 1978 law.
You should have lived with what we agreed upon in '78. And because you haven't, I felt compelled to introduce legislation, which I announced at the beginning of last year I would do.
They'll lay their eggs, and then that process will take place until they hatch out, relay eggs again, and they can review that process based on the eggs and the flies that are removed from the corpses of both of the individuals.
The reason they show up most of the time is they're looking for food in people's yards, and they find it quite often in the form of garbage cans and bird feeders, barbecue grills, pet food, that type of thing.
And as we were walking up, just leaving our cabin, it's when we heard all the popping going on of apparently the gas guns being lodged in or whatever. And it kind of took us by surprise. We were walking up going, what's going on?
The St. Louis County Sheriff's Department, the emergency response team, and other emergency teams were brought in to help arrest a suspect who allegedly shot 46-year-old Deputy David Eckerson. Authorities say he was checking on a report of a suspicious person with a gun.
One of our deputies was dispatched out here. He approached a cabin where the individual was staying, and as he got up to the cabin, the individual approached him with a gun and fired at the deputy. He struck the deputy.
Officials say the 8 hours were filled with negotiations with the suspect and police, and they brought the suspect's father in to talk with him. Officials say he was arrested without incident.
Our emergency response team used gas projectiles
and after the gas projectiles were put into the house, the man came out and gave up to the officers outside.
And through this process, many that lived near the cabin had to be evacuated and also waited until the standoff was over. A resident explains what he heard this morning.
And I heard a couple of sounds that sounded like firecrackers go off, just a few seconds between each other.
Authorities say the suspect is expected to be charged Monday with attempted murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm. Officials also say the suspect has a prior record, one conviction of felony in 1985 for receiving stolen property. Deputy Akerson remains in St. Mary's Hospital in stable condition. In Tower, Tamika Snowden, Channel 6 News.
It's nice to know when I look up and I see down the block, and I look down the block, if I know who belongs to that house and that they're supposed to be there, I'll give them a smile and a wave. And if I see something out of the ordinary that, I've never seen this person in my neighborhood before, I'll take a little bit more notice.
Couple hundred chairs. That would be great. One last year they sent, because of all of the projects, they sent 640 some chairs, and that was throughout the United States. So it would be great for the Twin Ports to really show a real effort.
I didn't follow her.
We hope you put it in a good spot. Well, thank you. On behalf of
Involving children or elderly parents or relatives, or
This is an example of how everybody works together. We will proudly display the signs that you've given to us. We're not exactly sure where they will be.
Unions aren't the same as when this partnership was formed. It was a united way. Where do you see this going?
come together and find common ground through service to the community and the people who live there. The preamble.
Was in his home. Scabra and the man were police officers who said, I checked when he tells me he has sex offender registration, sex offender community notification program.
We need to know when we have serious offenders in our midst. Citizens and certainly parents need to be able to make sure that their children are protected.
I'm just having a fun day. It's toward the end of the summer. We know people are a little tired. We got a gorgeous day, a fun day, a peaceful play day.
Is it large? Yeah. And these are big enough for me.
Nike, silver tabs, and Nike's been the biggest thing that my older boys. My two younger don't care.
These children are our future. What they're experiencing now at school, at home, and at play will shape what they become as adults. In May, more than 3,400 7th through 10th graders from various schools throughout Duluth were asked to complete an anonymous survey on personal behaviors. The results were compiled by the Search Institute and presented to a gathering of more than 300 community leaders today.
They can get to know the families and get to know the names of their kids, as I suggested.
The results were indicated as assets or weaknesses that will contribute to healthy child development. 4 basic criteria were established, including family, school, religion or community involvement, and peers. Only 15% of 7th graders and 13% of 10th graders met the 4 criteria. That places Duluth at about average for its 7th graders and slightly above average for 10th graders. But the director of the Search Institute asked if Duluth were willing to accept that.
So it's a little better than national average overall, particularly in the 9th and 10th grades, but still probably not where you want it as a community to be.
Mayor Gary Doty said the community as a whole needs to take responsibility for its children.
And that everybody is in agreement that this just isn't a problem that government and school districts can resolve. It has to be an entire community.
Duluth School Superintendent Mark Miles acknowledged that schools play a major role in children's healthy development and vowed to do what he can to make sure children get what they need.
Every child needs to know that in school there is an adult, caring adult that's in their corner every day.
The community leaders at today's presentation were asked to participate in a training session in September to learn the skills necessary to teach others how to increase the assets for children. The leaders hope to sign up 100 trainees to form a community-wide speakers bureau. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
This is an opportunity to come in because they know everybody here is related to them. They're all brothers and sisters and fellow vets, and they all know who they are, what they are about. So there's no pretense here.
It's that life, a nice, steady, quiet power. See, when you pull on that throttle, things happen, and the engine's turning, and there's things happening, and not a lot of big bunch of noise. It's peaceful and nice. Just a fascination with steam.
Nick Blotty started restoring this 1904 steam engine with a high school friend over 35 years ago. Traveling from farm to farm, it was used to thresh grain and saw lumber. It spent most of its time at a sawmill. Nick's been bringing this old engine to the reunion for years.
The smell of valve oil and coal smoke kind of gets in your blood, you know, and you're stuck with it then.
Dan Hiller organizes the reunion. He says he'll probably be the last of his generation to bring back the past by restoring some of these old engines.
Some of these older folks that are here enjoy bringing back the past like this and running it. Nick's steamer, Hanson's steamer down here in the south. This is the way it used to be.
And people come from miles around to see just how things used to be. Floyd Johnson helps out with the reunion every year and says people come to relive part of their past.
It's something they had in their younger years when they were growing up. It's what their parents had, their grandparents had. You don't see it every day, and here you can see it in operation.
Blacksmithing, cutting cedar for old-fashioned shingles, and branding them for souvenirs. There was plenty to see for all ages. Nick's been teaching his grandsons about the old steam engines. He taught a certain reporter how to steer one.
Keep her coming a little more when you feel the pressure. Then, you know, you put a little pressure on the chains up in the front. Crank her more.
More this way?
Yeah. A little more. Okay. Now you're oversteering. Now you gotta go the other way.
Now I gotta go the other way. All right. Am I doing okay?
You're doing just fine.
Near Esco, Liza Olson, Channel 6 News.
Hey, all right.
To the next setup for
Hundreds of people gathered in Moose Lake to support Senator Florian Chmielewski. There were political speakers, a pig roast, and of course, poker music. A former chief judge of the Minnesota Court of Appeals says it's do or die on September 10th.
This primary is the election. There is no tomorrow. And unless Chmielewski wins this primary, it's year 2000, that's going to be it.
But Chmielewski's supporters are confident that he will still be their senator till the year 2000.
When it comes to the pro-life issue, that's where Chmielewski is going to shine. There's a lot of us people who don't talk much about that, but we got a real belief in our heart.
The senator says he will speak for his constituents. He also said the legislature is unbalanced toward the rural areas, and that is why he should be re-elected.
Since now in the legislature there's a greater population of senators and representatives in the metropolitan area, we need the seniority system to help balance that kind of a ticket, and
Chmielewski said his recent problems in the legislature won't keep him from winning the September primaries.
It's all over. We cannot look backwards. We must move on forward, and that's where we're going. I'm moving on forward from here on in.
Chmielewski's opponent in the DFL primary is Representative Becky Laurie from Carrick. In Moose Lake, Molly Boyum, Channel 6 News.
And no pushing. We go all one row at a time.
He's got his four-way flashers on. This is a hazard warning, which means you can pass this bus, but you can't. You've got to pass it with caution.
Push open. Here's a first aid kit. We would take that with us. I would grab that.
Wake up, so we're ready to play tonight.
Reach out and touch it. That weekend, it was the best, and you know that's what did it. So like,
My idea was to get married in the Grand Canyon. I was going to surprise her and ride donkeys down to the bottom and have somebody waiting for us. and I had mentioned her a little surprise, and then she talked about, hey, you know, Duluth's been nice to us. Let's do something for them, and let's get married at the field.
We have an ongoing investigation going on. We're going to put all our effort into finishing it. We're going to pursue this person just like we pursued the other 4.
The investigation will continue until Carleton County Sheriff's Department has a 5th man in custody for the murder of Paul Antonich. Authorities are also searching for 20-year-old Jamie Lee Abed, pictured here. He's 6 feet tall and weighs approximately 135 pounds. Abed was last seen Sunday afternoon in the McGregor area. Investigators say he should be considered armed and dangerous. It took a lengthy manhunt to capture another one of the murder suspects in this case. Authorities searched 17 hours Sunday before capturing John Stephen Martin. Police say Martin was able to elude them for so long because he was an outdoorsman.
He's very familiar with the North Shore. He likes that area. He's an outdoors person. I think he just likes it up there.
Police in Red Lake County arrested 2 other suspects in the murder. Lester Greenleaf and Andy DeVerney were picked up on the Red Lake Reservation and are now in the Carleton County Jail. The first suspect police arrested was John Alexander Martin. He's also at the Carleton County Jail awaiting charges. All 4 men are expected to be charged Tuesday on second-degree murder charges. Molly Boyum, Channel 6 News.
Support me in this campaign. I'm sheriff himself. I am honored to say that
Juvenile Officer Association, and I'm also a member of the Northwest Wisconsin Juvenile Task Force. As sheriff, I will provide complete, around-the-clock personal service. I will focus on senior concerns and concentrate on juvenile crime. My department will protect
People everywhere are talking about this tragic incident and how the violence is affecting our communities. And now a group of people want to focus on healing the pain and anger of this crime and the violence.
We are not going to get anywhere in this community if we let our hate run rampant and our spirit of retribution and prejudice. That is not going to end violence in our community. It's not going to solve our problems. We need to find a way to come together as a community and heal and look for ways of making peace to the future.
Violence-Free Duluth and Men as Peacemakers, along with members of different congregations, will hold a healing service next Tuesday at the First United Methodist Church in Duluth.
It's going to be worship. We're really hoping that it is asking God's help as we come together as a community to try to build bridges of understanding, to heal ourselves from this horrible thing that has happened.
People who attend the service will be asked to make an offering, but instead of money, they will be asked to write down a way to bring peace to their families and their communities.
They can do something that they, empowered by their God, can make this city a better place, and that this violence doesn't have to have the final word.
Stretching his time, that is, the urge of time. You could make you up.
That's down the line, but right now, I'm just slapping in your office. People are going to get scared out of your office. Okay.
Yeah, we're striving to do our best. Get it.
We sat down as a group, and this group has sat down and hammered out some ideas, and they think that this is a real positive way for local kids and second career people of color to look at law enforcement as a career. And so what the scholarship fund we hope will do will give us more candidates from the neighborhoods and from our community who want to.
It's a little more work to be involved in a program where you don't use pesticides, because rather than just run quickly and grab a chemical, you have to think of an alternative method. But the program itself has been very good in helping us to find alternative ways to take care of weeds. Quite a few people have stopped. They'll see us in the yard and they'll ask us, well, what is this all about? So we try to explain to them the program, and we have pamphlets that we hand out.
Sure.
And people, so if they need to talk to somebody about this.
It's former wife.
Half of us knowing him for the 17 years and the other half just learning about him. The older guys, because they're veterans also, are taking it fairly well, but the young guys, it's a difficult time for them.
The Missouri, is it?
Usually the same guys that go on your trips?
Yeah.
If you're going to spend the money for the tickets, you might as well get good seats, because the ticket prices are all the same, whether you're in the front row or if you're way in the back. So if you're going to spend the money, you might as well be up front.
And it was actually her idea to come spend the night, and I said, I'll try anything once.
Lincoln Park looks like a war zone today. Shattered picnic tables, splintered boards strewn about and tossed into a nearby creek. A barbecue grill ripped off its foundation and thrown onto the roof of the park shelter. The destruction happened Sunday night during a senseless spree of vandalism. Today, as children play amidst the rubble, their caretakers wonder why anyone would do such a thing.
It was really sad. We didn't even use this part of the park yesterday. We went over to the other side of the park and used that side just because of, you know, the way the tables were.
From Ingrid Tower to Lester Park, nearly all of Duluth's 125 city parks have been vandalized, many within the last month.
I guess there's no park that's safe anymore from vandalism. They all can be a target, and it tends to just kind of bounce around.
City officials say the parks are safer when school's in session, and they're concerned by the apparent age of the vandals.
I did hear from a neighbor in the Lincoln Park area that it was 8 years old and up. Well, that's a little bit disturbing to think that even the 8-year-olds are being pulled into this type of activity.
City officials are stepping up their fight against vandalism by involving community members. During the next month, 9 public meetings will be held throughout the city to gather ideas on the best ways to fight this vandalism. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
There was a lot of blood that was found in the Antonich vehicle, including in the trunk and other portions of inside and outside the vehicle. And for that reason, we want to obtain blood samples of all of these accused individuals for comparison purposes.